Hi, I'm Paul J. Aguilar, news editor at The Vidette, the student voice of Illinois State University and a reporter for WGLT. Welcome to Democracy's Future, a joint project between The Vidette and WGLT News. We hear from the students who will help chart the future of our democracy. On this episode of Democracy's Future, we talk with the state representative whose district includes Illinois State University. Democrat Sharon Chung was first elected to the legislature in 2022. She is seeking re-election. We also invited Chung's Republican opponent Desi Anderson to the podcast for a separate interview. We have not received a response. Sharon Chung spoke with Vidette editor Mia Saras about her time in Springfield, what she's done, and hopes to do if re-elected.
Back after Donald Trump was elected in 2016, I'd always sort of been politically engaged in a way that, I always voted, I sometimes filled out petitions and those sorts of things, but I never actually, ever thought about running for office, never actually even attended a Democratic Party meeting or anything. But after he was elected, we saw that a lot of people all around the country started getting mobilized, started getting involved with their local politics, and that was one of those moments for me. My daughters at that time were very young. My oldest was 4. My youngest wasn't even 2 yet. She was still in diapers, and just sort of looking at them and thinking about our country, thinking about what this means for our country, I had to get involved. That was just the thing that really spurred it on. So I started going to Democratic Party meetings. I started sort of organizing meetings with our congressmen and organizing rally days down in Springfield and started advocating for lots of different issues. So I was really happy sort of being that sort of advocate, activist. Just showing up to those sorts of different things all around town. But in summer, maybe it was late summer of 2017 is when some folks approached me to ask me to run for county board. And I guess the rest is history.
What have you learned about how government works and maybe doesn't work in your first term?
Sure. Well, I think, I had campaigned for a really long time, for about 6 months there in 22. So being a candidate and actually governing is very different. And, it was a big learning curve, I have to say. I never had introduced legislation before, never had staff before, all those sorts of things it was a big learning curve for me. But quickly, we have a lot of great people down in Springfield, especially in the speaker staff, and they sort of gave us a crash course on how the budget works, who you need to talk to pass a bill, how to pass a bill, all these sorts of things, as a crash course on how to do that, and it was really exciting. So I think. When it comes to, I think for us, the budget, I think, is the biggest part of what we do in Springfield. I mean, legislation and everything, people come up with ideas of bills. We do, hear them in committee. We possibly hear them on the floor, all of that. But the big crux of what we do is the budget. And, all through the legislative session from January through May, folks come to us to talk about different budget priorities. And so for me, in my first year, in 23, it was a lot of me sort of still learning how that all worked. This last year, in 24, now that I had a better sort of handle of how it worked, I tried to do a little more heavy lifting, try to get more things into the budget. One of the things I was really proud of was this musician's tax credit bill that I worked on, and that got into the revenue package. I advocated for a child tax credit, all those different things, and try to help with different entities, nonprofits, school districts, those sorts of things with the needs that they have. So the budget is the biggest part of what we do, and we can't get, I couldn't get everything that I wanted in it, but that's not really how it works. But, it's really trying to figure out how we can work together as a team, as a Democratic caucus, and even a little bit across the aisle to see how we can get the most done for the folks in our state.
And then just going off that, what do you feel you have accomplished?
Wow. There's been a lot of accomplishments. I have to say, I'm really proud of a lot of the work we've done. To pick one, I don't know if I can, but some of the biggest lift that I did last year was the Family Farm Preservation Act. It didn't get quite over the finish line, but to propose a bill that would significantly amend tax law was kind of a big ask, but it was something that I was really interested in and something that I felt like really needed to be done. It was where we were going to change the estate tax in terms of for family farms, because they seem to be most negatively affected. When I talk to farmers all across the 91st district and all across the state, they talk about how while they're land rich, they're cash poor. They have land is valued at a very high rate. They have lots of equipment that's valued at very high. All the buildings and all those sorts of things, that all goes into, coming up with what a farm is worth. But while it's all in those sorts of things, they actually don't have very much liquid assets. So say when somebody dies and the family passes away, then the family then has to be on the hook for hundreds of thousands of dollars in taxes, and that can be really detrimental to a lot of families and family farms. And what we do want to see, at least from talking to everybody, we want to see those families, the farms stay within the families. They're great stewards of the land. Family farms have been in their families for generations, and we want to try and see if we can keep it that way. So Senator Kaler and I have been working on it. We're going to try and see if we can get over the finish line this year. But that learning that and trying to figure out how to get something that major into the budget was a really big learning process for me. We had lots of meetings with Speaker Welch. Senator Kaler did it on his end with President Harmon. We had meetings with different, the Illinois Farm Bureau was really instrumental in helping me get it done. Illinois Corn Growers Association. I talked with the folks at the Soybean Association, the governor's office, all those sorts of things. And then, then also talking to the committee chair to see if they can bring a hearing, and then getting the folks that want to hear to come and testify in the hearing. That's just a big part of that. So it was a really great learning experience. And we're gonna keep at it.
What initiatives are you currently supporting to help reduce the burden of college tuition and student debt in our state?
Yeah, that's a big issue. I know that here in Illinois we have a really great a department called ISAC, the Illinois Student Assistance Commission, and they're really great at sort of identifying different funding sources and things like that for students to be able to go to college, the ones that want to go, and to the students who they have the most need to be able to attend. So those sorts of things have been ISAC. I've worked with them on a couple of bills, actually no, one bill, and it was just to relax the sort of restrictions in order if somebody could not finish their decided to take a break from their scholarship program, they did not have to be on the hook for paying it back. So they gave them a little bit more leeway to be able to do that. So those are folks studying in teacher prep programs for, I think, the Golden Apple, I think it was for special ed, and I think people who maybe who are going to go from underserved areas and maybe going to go teach in underserved, something like that. So, that was in my first year. We have those sorts of resources, especially, I think, here in Illinois, we have a big teacher shortage. And here at Illinois State, we have the largest teacher prep program, one of the largest in the country. I think it's second largest in the entire country. So I think that, ISAC can really help with students like that. And we've also funded MAP grants. That's really big. I think that's helped a huge population of students to be able to attend college who want to, and that's something I've been very supportive of. And I think in the coming years we're going to try and look at. They just released the commission that looks at evidence-based funding for public colleges and universities here in Illinois. So hopefully, if things are funded well from the state, the hope is then that burden won't have to be put on students. Then the universities can give out more scholarship money. That's the hope. So if that's able to come to fruition and be able to, become law and be put into the budget, I think that would be a game changer for so many Illinois students who are attending public universities.
And then just kind of going off that, you touched on this a little. In your opinion, what should be the state's role in funding higher education to ensure that it remains accessible?
Yeah, and we've seen this. President Tarhoulet has talked about how we are in a deficit now here at Illinois State, and it's pretty true almost across the board for a lot of the Illinois public institutions. And we have a student sort of cliff, I guess. I don't remember what he calls it, but it's, essentially the number of students. There's going to be so fewer students attending of college age who in that pool to sort of attract to come to different colleges and universities. So, and we're sort of experiencing that worldwide. So I think if we, can try and see if what we can do to help fund public education. We've done it for K through 12 really well. And now, to me, the sort of next step would be to see what we can do with our public colleges and universities. I think this is an issue for me. I think even back, even before I got involved in politics, my job was I was a violinist, violist. I still do it, but I also taught a lot of students out of my house. So I had a lot of private students, and many of them, maybe about over 10 years ago, started telling me, I'm asking them what their plans were for college. Many of them were staying in state, I think, before then, but probably I'd say maybe early 2010s, I kind of started seeing a lot of my students who said, oh, well, we're told to go to Missouri, we're being told to go to Iowa, we're being told to go to Indiana for college, Kentucky, all of these states, because there's more scholarship money for us down there, and they're not funding our public colleges and universities very well here in Illinois, and there's not much scholarship money. So I remember even before I started getting involved in politics, I thought, this is not going to end well. And so it was one of those things that I, realized at that time this would probably lead to people maybe possibly leaving the state. Again, if students leave the state to go to college, a lot of times they'll maybe just stay there where they go to college. And that's not what I want to see. I don't think that's great for our state. We want to make sure that we give students great public education, college education, and then make sure that they have great jobs so that then they can maybe continue to live in the city that they went to college, or continue to live in the state. That's something that I've done. I've never lived outside of Illinois, and I'm really proud of that fact. I love the state, and I want to continue fighting for it.
How can we better educate young people about financial literacy to help them manage student debt?
Oh wow! I have to say, I was of the college of the generation that maybe where this started sort of happening, where college costs started getting really out of control. So I graduated college in 2000, and sort of seeing how much it has ballooned since then, maybe even within that 10-year time span. From 2000 to 2010, we saw really college costs really going out of control. And then, with the financial crisis, the recession that we went into too, as well at the end of that decade, I think, students were really saddled with debt and being on the hook for having lots of debt for going to college, and then not having a great paying job afterwards to be able to pay off those the debt. So I think that there has to be a responsibility, I think, from the folks who are sort of lending the money. It's not and we kind of saw that with predatory loans and those sorts of things. We've really tried to sort of crack down on people here in Illinois who are sort of being predatory in that way and going after people. We passed a bill sort of banning junk fees, and doing lots of different consumer protection laws. So to me, I feel like this is probably a consumer protection issue that we can look at, and then also just really make sure that students really know that this is how much they're on the hook for. You're not, and that you have X amount of time to be able to pay it back, and all these sorts of things, and to maybe even be able to show, like, okay, if you take out this much money and then you have to pay this much money each month to pay off your debt, those sorts of things, so that they can actually see it. But again, it's really hard to be able to see so much in the future, especially when you're 18 years old. I get it. I know that because I was there myself. But, as much as we can do to sort of put that all out there ahead of time, that they can kind of understand, I think that can always really help.
Housing affordability is a growing concern for many residents. What policies are you proposing to tackle this issue in our district?
Yes, I mean, that's something I have to say. So I've knocked on thousands of doors in the past couple months. And, that's one of the, between sort of property taxes and sort of cost of living, affordable housing is probably the other biggest issue that people mention to me. And I talk to a lot of people about how we sort of were in this perfect storm here in Bloomington-Normal, and the fact that we had Rivian come in and nobody realized, I don't know, maybe we didn't realize that they were going to ramp up hiring so quickly. And then we had the pandemic. And then with supply chain shortages and, interest rates being high, it all sort of added to this perfect storm of having a severe housing shortage here. And not only just, regular housing, like for people who want to buy maybe a starter home, like a moderately priced home, but also affordable housing for people if they want to live in apartments. And so we were hearing for a while there, people would be calling my office and saying that, they were living in this apartment for 7 years or so, and now they are completely priced out of this apartment because their rents keep going up. And that's really tragic. I'm not quite sure, to be honest, what the solution is. I know different things have been sort of proposed in terms of like rent control and, trying to see what we can do about getting more housing units built. I co-sponsored a bill this year about giving tax credits to developers, housing developers who will build affordable housing. And again, that's another big lift with my colleague, Representative Avalar was the one who sponsored it, and we talked about it a lot. And again, it was something I don't think it was able to get into the budget, but it's something that I told her I wanted to keep working on with her because it's really important for our community as well. So, we have a lack of units, and then of course, then because of that, then the market prices will go up. That's really tricky, and I'm, to be honest, I don't know what a good short-term solution is right now, but what we're trying to do and see is how we can get more places built here, and then we can maybe then also address the affordability issue.
Do you support a proposal that would cap what renters can charge?
Yeah, I have to say I've spoken with a lot of folks about this, and I'm not quite sure, to be honest. And I've spoken with the realtors, but I've also spoken with lots of advocates about it, and they're completely diametrically opposed, as you can imagine, on this issue. And I've also spoken with a lot of my my colleagues who've maybe been in office for longer than me and who've sort of dealt with this issue more. And I don't, I'm not entirely quite sure if I could support that and see how that would work. It's just something that I'm not. So let me back up. I will say this. I was working on sort of a bill to help with capping lot fees for folks that lived in manufactured homes. And even just that bill. And so again, manufactured homes operate completely differently, like economically, than, a apartment building or a house or a condo or something. You own your home and you pay rent to sit it on a lot. But even though you own that home, you can't just pick up and move it because that's not really how it works. So then we've heard of, venture capital companies coming in from out of state who are buying up a lot of the manufactured home parks around here, around Bloomington-Normal. And dramatically raising lot fees every 6 months or a year. Somebody said that I used to pay, $50, and now it's been raised by $25 every year for the past 5 years, and that sort of thing, especially when people are on fixed incomes. That's really devastating. And, even just me trying to work on that, it got a lot of pushback. And so, I don't know what the answer is, but there are a lot of people in place that do not like the idea of rent control. I don't know if there's a way to reframe it or to see if there's a way that we can work together. But when people say rent control, seems to be a sort of knee-jerk reflex, especially in Springfield, where people say, no way, no rent control. And I'm not exactly quite sure how to fix that. but I do applaud a lot of the advocates that I've spoken to. You know, they're very passionate about it, and you know, I really do ask them to sort of keep working and see what we can do to find some sort of place where we can come together on this issue.
And then just to pivot the topic a little bit, your opponent has made public safety a key theme of her campaign. What are your priorities when it comes to improving public safety in our communities, and how do you plan to implement them?
Sure. You know, here, what we've done, so I know, especially back in 22, when I ran in 22, a lot of folks were talking about the Safety Act. And how it was going to lead to criminals roaming our streets, and how it shows that we don't care about public safety. And it's been now in place for over a year, and I don't think that, I mean, it's kind of been proven that that's not the case. And what it's doing now is what it meant to do. So it was that people aren't being held in jail right now just because they don't have the money to be able to come out to post bail. So then it's not, money is not a factor in trying to figure out if somebody is going to be held in jail. And that's also led to lower rates of people being in population rates in jails, in county jails, which has then led to better morale actually amongst staff. And so that sort of thing, you know, I feel like that's a win. And what we've seen also, violent crime rates have gone down. You know, I think some people don't seem to believe that, but we've seen statistically that violent crime rates have gone down. And so for us in the legislature, we are funding, giving law enforcement the tools that they need to be able to do their jobs. We're putting money into the budget every year. You know, I have to say, and this is the budget that we as Democrats, we vote on, and I have not seen, in my 2 years, I haven't seen a single Republican vote on the budget. So that means that they are voting against funding these public safety measures, and then the funding for public safety and the funding for law enforcement. So, you know, to me, I see a disconnect there. I'm just going to say that plainly. So we are there, and again, I've spoken with the chief of police in Bloomington. I have a good relationship with him. I've spoken to the chief of police here at Illinois State, you know, and asked them, you know, let me know what you need. Because again, if I don't know what their needs are, there's no way that I can advocate for them. So I've had this, and I guess that's sort of how I've operated so far with a lot of folks here in Bloomington-Normal, people, you know, nonprofits and the school districts and, you know, the county and the city. You know, I won't know what their needs are unless they come to me and talk to them. And I have to say I have a pretty good relationship with most of them, and they know that they can call me if they need something, and we'll see what we can do about it. So when it comes to public safety, we're putting money into the budget every year to help fund that. So I don't know what else to say then about any claims coming from the other side.
How do you envision collaboration between law enforcement agencies and community organizations to enhance public safety?
Last night I went to this event here on campus. It was for CIRC. It was Take Back the Night, Students Ending Rape Culture. And, you know, I saw an officer from the Illinois State Police with Officer Sage. My kids and I got to pet her. And then we saw my friend Kyle Nowers with the Bloomington Police Department. He's their community engagement lead. And, you know, having those folks there, knowing that they do value student safety here on campus, I think that was a great show of support that they were there for that event. And, you know, I have to say also, you know, at least in Bloomington, that's where I live, you know, I've seen the community engagement team out and about in a lot of different events. Like at Pride Fest this year, they're around and walking around, and there was an unruly gentleman who was sort of saying a lot of really hateful things, and the officers sort of went to him. But they wanted to make sure that we were creating a safe environment for people to be able to celebrate Pride Fest this year. So, you know, I think that things like that are really important to see, that those folks in the community, to see that they are willing to stand up for marginalized groups, to know that that they're there for us. That's really important. So I feel like those are great steps. And, you know, I'm always willing to sort of help them sort of collaborate more, or give them some more ideas or anything like that. But it's those sorts of things here locally are really great to see.
What role do you think mental health resources play in addressing public safety concerns, and how can these resources be expanded?
So we here in McLean County, we have the mental, oh my gosh, I forgot what it was called. It used to be called the Triage Center, but I don't think it's called that anymore. But it's a sort of place where people can go, so that if they're having a mental health crisis, that they know that they can go there and that the police won't be called immediately right away. It's a good place for people to go, that they'll be able to get the help and attention or whatever they need to be able to help deal with the crisis. I think that's a really great resource we have here in McLean County. We helped sort of, when I was back on the county board, we helped sort of spearhead and fund it. And then actually what's great is that this past year I helped give some money to the Center for Human Services so they can continue that work. So I've been able to see this from its beginning and to be able to see where it is now and to help and to continue to help with their mission. And I think that's important. And I think, we've talked a lot about also making sure that trying to see if police forces can have somebody who's dedicated on their staff that deals with more mental health crises, that they're trained in that. And they've been doing, and as far as I know, that there's training in that, so that the officers know to recognize when somebody's having a mental health crisis, so that force or anything like that is not the first sort of way to deal with that, an issue. So, I think that those are great steps, again, that we've done here locally. I think that speaking with some of my colleagues all around the state, they've always been impressed with what we've done here in McLean County in terms of mental health and sort of making it a focus. Of course, we can always do more. I'm sort of the person that I don't ever want to rest on one's laurels, that, we've done great work, but we can always do more and always reach more people, of course, but, funding's always the issue there.
How do you assess the availability of women's healthcare services in our district, and what improvements do you propose?
I think it's great that here in Bloomington we do have a Planned Parenthood facility, a clinic. I don't think they do offer some services. They don't offer full range services, but they do offer some services. And again, that's something that, if they're, and I've never really talked to them as to why they don't offer the full range of services there at that clinic. It might be just because there's maybe not as much of a need, or there's maybe limited resources that, folks will have to go to, I think it's Springfield or Champaign, for other services. So, but I think that that's really great that we have that here. We're one of the few downstate sort of areas that have a Planned Parenthood clinic, and they provide so many wonderful services for people. But again, and we have here on campus, I'm sure there's some there's health services here too. I think making sure that people are able to get the services that they need is really important to me. Reproductive rights and reproductive freedom has always been very important to me since I was fairly young, I have to say. And now that I'm the mother of 2 daughters, and I said this last night at the Take Back the Night rally, but it's devastating to me to know that my daughters are growing up in a world where they have fewer rights than I did when I was growing up. And so for me in the legislature, I want to make sure that we are continuing to make reproductive freedom, women's health care a really important issue that we are always going to stand behind and support.
What strategies do you support to encourage civic engagement and voter participation among all demographics in our state?
Yeah. I think, it's interesting, I have to say. So I've knocked on a lot of doors here, again, thousands of doors these past couple months. And it's interesting, I've found a few people who actually have told me they're not voting. And and that actually has just come up in the past couple weeks, maybe no week, honestly. I was talking about with some folks on my team that we've had voters and people, when we go to their doors, they say we're not voting this year. And I don't know if it's a sort of apathy or they're not excited about candidates or whatnot. And I always try to pivot to like, hey, but you got a candidate right here at your door and you can ask me whatever you want. And, and then maybe then hopefully you can, consider voting for me. For me, how I do voter engagement is that, again, I talk to people every day and I sort of get them excited about meeting, an actual representative and somebody. And I usually say, I'm here on your porch. Tell me what you care about and tell me your concerns. What would you like to see us do better? Are there anything that you do really care about? Those sorts of things. And I feel like having that sort of personal sort of connection to somebody, I think it's really important. And that's why I've been so visible in our community, going to lots of events. I go to the Kroger that's on Main Street. That's my Kroger. I call it the People's Kroger. That Kroger, every time I go there, I will see somebody I know. And it's just great because, again, it just sort of, and they say to me, oh my gosh, you're shopping for groceries? I'm like, yeah, because I'm a real person. But, I think that just sort of having people to see that their rep is just out and about in our community doing things, I think it sort of gives them a sort of personal connection to me, and I think it's really great. And I'm not saying that like I'm like the greatest representative ever or anything like that, but it's just the fact that like I care about this community so much, and that's how we can and if people see how much I care about it, then they'll want to care about it too, and then they'll want to vote for the things that they believe in. I kind of see it that way, and I think here. I here at Illinois State, we have, a huge student population, and I think the Center for Civic Engagement has done a great job of really letting students know this is how you get engaged, this is what you do. I mean, they've done such a wonderful job with that. So, hopefully then they'll know that everything is political, everything is intertwined. You vote for the people that sort of represent your values the best. And that everything is sort of related to that, and again, it's hard, especially when you're younger, to sort of be able to see that sort of big picture. I mean, again, I was that same person too, but to know that like you'll have somebody who is trying to fight for affordable housing, trying to fight for lower healthcare costs, trying to fight for good paying jobs, and growing our economy, those sorts of things, they're really important. So you want to make sure that you're voting the right people in office to do that.
And then just since you touched on people not voting, in your view, what is the biggest challenge to democracy today, and how do you plan to address that?
I was talking about this with some members of my team yesterday, and it was interesting. I spoke to a woman who said that she was apolitical, but she really hated Donald Trump. And so somebody, my team said, well, I don't understand like how she could be apolitical but hate Donald Trump. And I said, well, honestly, I think that there's a lot of fatigue there. He's been running for president for 9 years now. And, he says so many things that are really quite divisive. And the fact that, at least speaking to this woman yesterday, she was like, I don't understand. He says all this stuff and so many people still follow him. And, I think that there's that apathy that you're kind of like, maybe I might vote, but it might not do any good. And I sort of turn around the other way that like, well, that's why we have to keep fighting for what we believe in. And that's what I say to people, I mean, I have no other choice. This is why I got involved. I have to keep going. And then now that I'm an elected official, I have to keep fighting for my community.
Why do you want 2 more years?
Oh my goodness, I have so many things I still want to do. That's why I want 2 more years. We have, so I feel like we've done so many great things here in Illinois under the leadership of Governor Pritzker. We've really turned the state's finances around, really brought the fiscal house into order with 9 credit upgrades, putting money in our rainy day fund, funding public education, all these sorts of things, and then bringing like really great new economic development here to Illinois. With Rivian here is really huge, and then different sort, and the battery facilities, and then I think he just announced some sort of big state data storage facility. I don't even know how that works, but you talked about that yesterday. So all these things are coming to our state, and I'm so excited to see that, and I want to see what we can do to keep encouraging that. I love Illinois so much. I love the state. I've never lived outside the state. I love Bloomington-Normal, and I want people to see that, again, that I'm fighting for them, that I am wanting to see what we can do to really make this place a great place to be.
That was State Representative Sharon Chung with Vedette editor Mia Saras. In our next Democracy's Future episode, we'll hear from two ISU students on opposite ends of the political spectrum. We'll see if there's any way they can find common ground on the issues that mean the most to them. Our thanks to audio producer Bren McMonigal, WGLT Digital Content Director Ryan Denham, and WGLT News Director Eric Stock. Please give us your feedback on this series and let us know if there are certain issues you'd like us to explore. Email us at news@wglt.org. Subscribe to Democracy's Future on the NPR app or wherever you listen. Until next time, I'm Paul J. Aguilar. Thank you for listening.